Okay, great. So these are my notes for my reaction for Straight White Men. I did read the American Theater Magazine version. I did have the Dramatist Play Service because I remember it looking the same as the Thomas Paine Based on Nothing that we're about to read. I just don't know where my Straight White Men went. I got a box of books that I tried to bring from school when everything started to go out of hand, but that might have been lost because it's tiny. Right off the bat, I think this is our first pre-show stage direction that we get, with the female rap played during pre-show so loud that the audience has to scream to be heard over it. I really liked also the stagehand introduction. I don't think we've had that before either, where the stagehand is sort of, because they're speaking on stage, right? They sort of also become a character. Not necessarily within the fiction, but, you know, there's a sort of tongue-in-cheek moment, right, where the fourth wall is addressed. You know, they're going to pretend to not see you or interact with you unless, you know, there's a cell phone involved or your video. They might come into the audience to attack you, right? It kind of sets the tone very early that this is going to be a sort of tongue-in-cheek satire sort of play. The Monopoly Privilege game sort of felt a little bit on the nose. I don't know how it is in the final version, but I think part of it is that the characters are kind of like that, right? They're a little bit on the nose. They don't really know how to operate through subtlety, I don't think. We get Ed looking adorable in stage directions, which I thought was fun. The issue that I had with this play, right, is that a lot of the time, with Matt's character, interestingly enough, particularly, right, he's sort of characterized as this really, like, thoughtful, sensitive, and privilege-aware character, but when he's young, right, he's doing a lot of insensitive sort of comedy to reach that means. And to me, that meant, right, like, there's this idea that, like, when you use racism or homophobia as satire, but it doesn't have the crystallized, like, cogent effect that you set out to have, right? It functions the same way that racism and homophobia does without satire, with actual malice attached to it, right? Without it being focused enough and clear enough that it's satire, right? Even if your intention is for it to be satire, if it doesn't read as that, it functions the same way. Another thing that I found was interesting was that in the stage directions we get, in brackets, name of video game system. And that, I think, functions as a way to let the play basically stay relevant in future productions, right? If you give a specific video game systems only are relevant for a certain number of years, right? You know, if this play had been written, I think it was written in 2014, you know, and if they said PS3 or instead of PS4, right, that's going to be a noticeable thing for people who do play video games, that locates that in time. But by putting video game system in brackets, you're able to say, when you're producing the play, right, when you're actually putting it on, you're able to say whatever current video game system that you choose. Or if you want to date the play, right, if you want it to be located in a certain time period, you get to choose whatever, you know, retro video game system you want to have in there. It's really dynamic, that it allows sort of the director and maybe even the team to decide how they want to play that. That was really mostly my notes. This play was interesting. It sort of felt more like a one-act instead. I know that there's 3 acts, but it felt sort of inconsequential most of the time. I think that this could have been accomplished in a much shorter, much more direct fashion, since it's really not so subtle in the first place, right? If it was operating on a level of subtlety that some of our earlier plays have seen, then I would understand it being this long. But because everyone is operating in such literal language and really trying to address things, I think I was almost upset myself with Matt just not saying what was going on, because it felt not like it didn't feel like the character was really honestly wanting to keep it to themselves. It honestly just felt like that was just happening because the play wasn't over yet, and you needed to sort of extend the drama in order to reach the natural duration of the play. But I think the natural duration could have been shorter. I'm interested to see in the discussion today what the actual dramatist finished product looks like. And I'm also interested in discussing it in terms of Top Dog Underdog. I think that's going to be a really interesting dynamic between the two plays. I think that Top Dog Underdog is a more successful and fully realized product than this is, but that, again, I'm reading an early draft. So, yeah.